What's good, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon back with another deck analysis. It's been quite a while since the last one. Holidays coming up, came and gone. Wanted to spend some time with family, took a bit of a break from the game, but we're back. Nationals are coming up in a bit, next month. We're getting a new set in a month. I got to steamroll through the rest of these EX3 decks, but today, this was actually a video I was planning to make last month, around the time I got first place with this deck, and that is Bloomlord Hydramon. I feel like this deck has been practically engineered by the community to a point where if you don't see the cards that you see in front of you right now on this screen, it's not reaching its peak performance. But I did, after getting a very great comment from someone on my D Brigade video about showcasing a deck that didn't have a Death X and was a bit more meant for people who didn't have that, I did come up with another deck list here that does run Death X, and it just showcases the type of cards, and it does have some extra additions to this deck, and I'll cover that as well. But the deck right here is what I used when I got first place, so let's talk about that first. What does Bloomlord Hydramon do? For people who are new to the game, essentially what Bloomlord does is it makes use of the amount of Digimon you have that are either a plant, vegetation, or fairy, and regains the memory you used when digivolving into it, which is 4. So by that point, you have already gotten your board filled with maybe 2, 3 Digimon with vegetation, or fairy, or plant, and you're gonna bring back most, if not all, of the memory just spent digivolving into him. If you have 2 or more memory that you gained from his effect, you then can unsuspend him, and then he gains piercing. And to top it off, then, for every 2 of your suspended Digimons, he gets plus 2,000 DP and a security attack plus 1. So by the time you swing with him for his checks, you should have maybe, I don't know, 2 to maybe 4 Digimon that have been suspended somehow. And there are ways you can get around with suspending it without actually attacking, and we'll discuss that. Hydramon came out in EX3, and it kind of made this deck that was already semi-consistent into a even more consistent thing. Its Digivolving effect lets you suspend a opponent's Digimon. It's a typo there. And then all turns once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, for each other suspended Digimon with vegetation, plant, or fairy in their traits that you have in play, you gain a memory. So again, because he's a 5 cost for Digivolving, that kind of makes back a lot of that. And then at the end of your turn, if you have 2 or more suspended Digimon with vegetation, plant, or fairy in their traits, you can return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of their deck. So if they have a level 6 Digimon that's not being protected enough, you can just easily cripple them right there. So starting off, though, we are running 5 Digi-Eggs here. I personally run 4 Argomon and 1 Gummymon. The reason I run the Argomon is just gaining that extra memory. Usually we're not suspending our Digimon by attacking, we're suspending them through effects. So just if my opponent isn't bringing in the Digimon to kill off my board, I'm just going to make back a bit of memory the next turn because they weren't taking advantage of my suspended board. Gummymon here works well because since we do have effects that suspend our opponent's Digimon, we can then use its effect to draw 1. I've seen some decks and variants of this that use 4 Gummymon instead of the Argo, and they work very nicely. But I personally just prefer the memory choking because we are only running 2 memory tamers here, and we're only running 2 green memory boosts. Moving into our level 3s, we are running 14 level 3s here. All of these are vegetation or plants. We're running 2 Mushroomons, which is a 2 cost to play. It's 300. It's a vanilla card. There are other cards you could use instead of it. I was just using Mushroom at the time. We're running 4 copies of the BT10 Palmon. This is one that you actually do need to play because of its on-play effect. It's reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 card with vegetation or plant in its traits, and 1 card with fairy in its traits among them to your hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this is looking for basically any of our plants or vegetations, and then 1 fairy. Our fairy in this case is going to be Bloomlord. It is the outside of, yeah, pretty much it is the only fairy that we have in this deck. When they built that deck, built this card, I'm pretty sure they were trying to think of a tribal Lilymon, Rosemon thing. Hopefully we'll get that maybe in the future where Rosemon can get some good support. But until then, this Palmon is meant for Bloomlord. We are also running 4 copies of both Pomumons. Now, I've seen a lot of people who don't run 4 copies of this Pomumon. I personally like it because if I can get this early game, I can make it hard for my opponent in some matchups. Specifically, I can basically stonewall for a good chunk of time a matchup against, say, God, what is the deck? See, this is what happens when you don't script things. Ragnalord. So in the tournament I got first place. I actually went against 2 Ragnalord players, and I was able to stonewall them for quite a bit with this Pomumon until I was able to get the pieces I needed. I did make a misplay in one match where I used Agitar's effect in order to play another Digimon when I shouldn't have been able to because of my Pomumon, because this Pomumon affects both players. Thankfully, he was considerate about it. You know, I even offered to take it back and bring the board state back to what it was, but he was fine with it. It wasn't too far into the game. It was pretty early on, but yeah. And then we're also running 4 copies of this Pomumon. This EX3 Pomumon is one that I would also, like the Palmon, say is something you should run at 4. 3 at the minimum. Its effect is during your turn, when an effect suspends this Digimon, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. If you're using this Digimon for one of your other Digimon's suspending effects, you can then suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, set yourself up, swing into it. If it's Bloomlord, it's going to have piercing, and it's just going to wreck your opponent's security. On our level 4s, we are running 12 level 4s here. We are running 4 copies of Red Vegemon. We are running 4 copies of Sunflowermon. Sunflowermon has a Digivolving effect. By suspending one of our green Digimon, we can play a Digimon with Vegetation, Plant, or Fairy in its traits, and 3000 DP or less. So that is the crux of this here. 3000 DP. I realize now some of these Digimon I cannot have because they are not 3000 DP. But that is why our Palmon's here, 3000 DP. That is why our Mushroomon here, 3000 DP. Pomumons, both of them are 2000 along with Palmon. The Red Vegemon and our Weedmon are both 3000. Because of this, all of our level 4s and 3s we can actually play off of our effects that can let us play a Vegetation, Plant, or Fairy. Now, Sunflowermon also has an inherited of when an effect suspends one of your Digimon, draw 1. It's nice. It doesn't come up as often as I would like in my matchups, but it was nice when it did. We also have Weedmon. Weedmon, we are not using him for his inherited. We're not. He's a cheap Evo along with Red Vegemon, both being only 1 cost to Evo. And he basically fills out the Vegetation 3000 DP criteria. That's all. Unfortunately, with level 4s, these are practically the only ones that fill out both criteria. If this included, say, Insectoid, we could run Roachmon because it's a 3000 DP, but it doesn't fill out that criteria because we can't use Insectoid. Because of that, our level 4s are pretty much just kept here, really. If you wanted, you could run maybe 1 or 2 blockers by bumping your Red Vegemon down a little to maybe 2. But then you're not going to be able to really get a lot. But we are running 14 rookies. So there is some room to tinker around, I imagine. But again, this deck has practically been engineered by the community to be as efficient as it could be. For our level 5s, we are running quite a few level 5s actually. We are running two of our level 5s here are Digi-Absorptions. Those are being Cherrymon, which is a Digi-Absorption -2, so it becomes a 1 cost to Evo. And then it's also got the nice effect of, during our opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks, we can actually switch the target of attack to one of our suspended Digimon, making use of the fact that we have a lot of suspended Digimon. If they're trying to go for our level 5s that are going to go into Bloomlord or Hydra, we can just redirect it to one of our level 3s or 4s. We are running 3 copies of Blossomon. Blossomon has a Digi-Absorption -3, so it just becomes a free Evo. What Digi-Absorption, for people who are new to the game, Digi-Absorption lets us reduce the Digivolution cost by suspending one of our Digimon, and that can actually be even our own Digimon that's Digivolving into Blossomon, which is great. Usually if you're going into Blossomon, then you're going to use that to go into your Bloomlord because of Bloomlord's effect that lets it unsuspend if you have gained 2 or more memory from his effect. Finally, though, we are running 4 copies of Hydramon. Hydramon he's really good. His Inherited lets us gain a memory if an effect suspends one of our Digimon, which it's going to a lot. So if we go into Bloomlord off of him, we're going to get an extra memory. Or no, if we're going into Hydramon off of him, we're going to gain an extra memory because of Hydramon's when Digivolving effect of you can suspend a Digimon. So what he also does is his main effect, once per turn, by suspending one of your green Digimon. You can play one Digimon with Vegetation, Plant, or Fairy in its traits, and 3000 DP or less from your hand without paying its cost. Exactly the same as Sunflowermon. So it's just going to give us an extra thing that we can work with. And because of that, we can also suspend him in order to just unsuspend by going into Bloomlord if needed. It's just very nice. Now, I've mentioned Bloomlord and I've mentioned Hydramon at the beginning of the video. For option cards, I actually run only 5. I run 2 copies of Grand Del Sol, which is an 8 cost to play. But if you have 2 or more suspended green Digimon in play, it's reduced by 2, so it becomes a 6 cost. Its effect, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and then return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of their deck. It's essentially just Hydramon in option card form. Its security effect is just activating its main effect. So there were points where it actually came in clutch in security, and I was able to bottom deck a Ragnarlord twice, which was hilarious. My opponent got greedy in one point, swung with one of his Digimon instead of Jogressing or DNA Digivolving, hit Grand Del Sol, bottom decked it. He couldn't Jogress at that point, and he ended up losing that game. But it was definitely fun when it comes in clutch. We're running 1 copy of Hidden Potential Discovered. We can only run 1 copy. It is a staple in most, if not all, green decks, especially here because it lets you suspend one of your Digimon to reduce the memory cost of Digivolution by 5. Finally, we are running 2 green memory boosts just for that delay memory gaining and also searching for our main pieces here, being our level 5s and level 6s. And then 2 copies of Mimi. Mimi, I just have her here because she is a memory fixer. She sets us to 3. And by the time we get to Bloomlord or Hydramon, if we rack up enough of a board that is already suspended, but we have something in our raising, we can actually go for Gang off of her effect, letting us basically bring out a level 3 from our breeding zone. Now, the other variant of this deck does use some different cards. For the most part, we're still using the same level 4s. I bumped Red Vegemon down to 3. And instead of running the Mushroomon, we bumped this Pomumon down to 3. It can be bumped down to 2 and just making this 4. So let's talk about that. This is a Palmon. This is the EX3 Palmon. Its on deletion effect lets you suspend one of your opponent's Digimon with 5000 DP or less. The reason I basically put it here is because if you do just play it off of its effect, and then it gives you just an easy thing just to swing into your opponent's security. It'll die for sure, most likely, because of 1000 DP. And then you can just suspend one of your opponent's level 3s or maybe 4s and just set yourself up for swinging in with Bloomlord with Piercing. Now, I did add also a Argomon. Now this is also a Digiabsorption -3. He also has the nice when attacking of you may play one level 3 green Digimon from your hand suspended without paying its cost. So it's just when we're attacking with Bloomlord, if we Digivolved off of this Argomon, we're gonna get another body in. A lot of players do run the Argo. I just personally don't, but it is a viable option. We've also bumped Bloomlord and Hydramon from 4 to 3, and we are running 2 copies of Death X. Just because, Death X is... It's still a decent card. It's still pretty good. It basically, on play, de-Digivolve 1 for all of our opponent's Digimon, deletes all of their level 4s or lowers. It's decent if you're trying to stonewall your opponent and they're building up a board faster than you. I imagine. And then also, end of opponent's turn, once per turn, delete all of opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. Now, while we are still running the 2 Grand Del Sol and the Hidden Potential, we are actually running, instead of Green Memory Boost here, 2 copies of Tropical Venom, which, because we're suspending a lot more in this because of the Palmon, Tropical Venom actually is really nice, because it basically puts on one of your opponent's Digimon the on deletion effect, lose 2 memory. So you can attach it to one of your opponent's Digimon, swing in with Bloomlord, there's piercing, you're also going to gain 2 memory off of it as well. So if you can then bring in a Hydramon from that because of the increased memory, that works great. And then finally, instead of the Mimi, we run Ruri, because it is also a memory fixer, and when you're attacking with a Digimon that has Angoramon in its name or is level 5 or higher, you can suspend the Tamer to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon with 5,000 DP or less. It's just a lot more suspending and a lot more memory gaining off of Tropical Venom. Now, outside of these, some other cards that you could recommend in or tech into a deck. Again, the problem is this deck has been engineered. And a lot of these, like, you'll see some people running Terriermon. Terriermon, however, is a beast. So you have to bring him in raising. The only other vegetation cards that you could is Palmon from the BT1, because it reveals top 3 cards, add 1 level 4 Digimon, go to the bottom, but then you're losing out your 5 and 6s. This Palmon, which can just place another Palmon from your trash under one of your green Digimon, which you could just run in conjunction with the starter deck for Palmon, where if you're attacking an opponent's Digimon, like with Bloomlord, it gets plus 2,000 on top of the multiple plus 2,000s it gets. I didn't talk about Pinamon, because Pinamon, it's similar to Gummymon, but instead of suspending, it's basically if you're attacking an opponent's Digimon, you trigger draw 1. For level 4s, there's if you wanted to run, say, a blocker, Woodmon is probably the best because it is a 5 cost. If you're going for more Evo, then I would then say the only other option is Kabuterimon, because it's a 1 cost for Evo. As well as if you're running a vegetation, Togemon, it's 4,000, so it doesn't run the criteria, and it's a 4 cost to play, so it doesn't run the criteria. It also gives you an extra 2,000 like the Palmon, so it's an option. For level 5s, there are 3 possibilities. The first is another Digiabsorption, -3, being Entmon. This is from the EX3. It has when Digivolving, if you have 2 or more suspended Digimon in play, unsuspend this Digimon, which is nice. It, however, does have the problem it's a 4 cost, so that -3 is going to bring it to a 1 cost, which is admittedly okay, but still. And then also we have Torapiamon. Now, there are 2 versions of Torapiamon. This is EX3's Torapiamon. When Digivolving, if this Digimon is suspended, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and it's inherited. When an effect suspends one of your Digimon, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. I personally would prefer the BT6 Torapiamon. Now, this is a 6,000 DP, but it's when attacking is suspend one of your opponent's Digimon with 5,000 DP or less. It's just another variant of Ruri. It's another variant of Palmon, except now in, like Ruri, it's when attacking. For option cards, Flower Cannon suspends Digimon. Its security effect is really nice. Suspends all of your opponent's Digimon that don't have blocker. Needle Spray, old but good card. Still somewhat reliable. Just does the same thing, and then its security lets it activate its effect and then go to your hand. Samada Santi, if you want to basically just suspend one of your fodder Digimon to lock one of your opponent's Digimon in a suspension for a turn. And Blasted Disaster is a card that I like the idea of it. I don't know if it can work, though. I bring it up because it is a 6 cost of play. However, its main effect is really nice. It suspends all of your opponent's Digimon, and then you gain a memory for each of your opponent's suspended Digimon. So what basically could happen is you just use that, suspend all of your opponent's Digimon. If your opponent has a wide board, or if it's possibly even a mirror match, this could actually come in clutch because it just passes turn. If your opponent doesn't have a memory fixer, you potentially could just put them at 1. And they won't be able to have a lot they can do. They might be able to gain some memory, but not as much as they would want. The only other issue is its security effect only suspends one of your opponent's Digimon, which is kind of sad. For Tamers, Ken Ichijo for just gaining memory off of killing Digimon and surviving, like with Bloomlord because of the piercing, is nice. And then the Izzy and Mimi, because your opponent is going to have cards that they're going to be suspended, probably. With a lot of our effects, especially if it's, say, you're using Grand El Sol, you'll gain another card. They have 2 Digimon. They're swinging with their weaker Digimon. You're going to keep that suspended. You're going to suspend their better Digimon, and then you're just going to bottom deck that better Digimon. They're still going to have a suspended Digimon. If they can't unsuspend it that turn, you're going to gain 2 extra memory. Its other effect being when your level 5 green Digimon attacks, you can suspend the Tamer in order to reveal top 3 cards of your deck. You can Digivolve that attacking Digimon into 1 level 6 green Digimon and without paying its cost. So how that's going to work out is you're going to suspend it. You might get Bloomlord. Bloomlord is now evolved. It's when Digivolving effect goes off. You suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. One of your Digimon. You then gain memory. So because it's now free, you're going to gain extra memory. You're going to unsuspend. It's going to gain piercing. So not only is it getting 1 attack, it's getting the extra 2,000. It's going to gain the piercing. So if you swung into an opponent's Digimon, it has piercing now already. It's going to get multiple checks, and then it's going to swing again from that. Like, that's what could happen, theoretically. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Bloomlord and Hydramon. Personally, you don't need Death X in this. I don't believe you need Death X. I could understand why someone would want Death X. I don't think you need Death X. This deck, I've said it again and again. This deck has been engineered. People have cracked the code with this deck. Could it be improved in the future? Yes. We may get more cards that can support it. People might not have figured out some cards could support this deck in a very good way. There's always possibilities. But as it is right now, you definitely do see this topping in some locals. Not like it. Like I would rate it above Examon because this has more consistency in like popping off. Examon, when it pops off really hard. But I'll talk about that when I cover it. But that is it for this deck analysis. I hope you all have had a great holiday. I hope you all had a great New Year's. I'm surprised that with the time I've taken off, I haven't lost any subscribers. In fact, we're at 77 subscribers right now, and that still kind of astounds me a bit. Definitely this year, though, I do have a lot of things I want to do with this channel. You know, I want to try to go back to maybe streaming if I'm able to make a coherent schedule. I want to be able to get more match videos. I want to learn how to edit my match videos so the background noise isn't there and I could put in some post commentary. You know, there are things I want to do, and hopefully I can get some of those done this year. And yeah, no. So again, that is it for this deck analysis. Leave a like, comment, tell me what you think about this. You know, what would you change? You know, I especially with a deck like this, I want to hear theories, you know, of how it can be changed around, how it can be improved. Like I'm always interested in that. And also, if there is a notification button, please click it. You know, YouTube's algorithm is not great for long form content that's like close to 20 or over 20 minutes long. I really would appreciate it. But again, I will see you all in the next video. Peace.